Good evening. My name is Sandra Fritz. I'm the chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee. On behalf of my colleagues and central office staff, I'd like to welcome you to our meeting of January 8th. Tonight's meeting is broadcast live on Shrewsbury Media Connection through the work of John McDonald, and it will be rebroadcast between now and our next meeting on January 22nd. First on the agenda is public participation. No one has asked to speak this evening, but if anyone wishes to do so in the future, please contact the committee, and we'd be happy to add you to the agenda. Next is chairperson and members report. Does anybody have anything this evening?
Nothing today.
No. Next is superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. I did want to mention and congratulate the 10 Shrewsbury High School students who recently completed their capstone research projects. This is a program that used to be known as Senior Exhibition for many years, where a student would do an independent project over the course of their senior year. And starting last year, based on, is actually a program of studies, which you'll see this evening, later changed, that was recommended. Mrs. Liza Tremblay, who is the chair of the English department, is advising for this program, and essentially, instead of doing it senior year, students begin an independent project in the spring of their junior year and complete it in January of their senior year. Some of the benefits for that being that students would be able to be in the thick of the project and really have a good sense of it when they start to begin to look at applying to college and be able to articulate some of the work they've been doing perhaps and be conversant with it, and also attract more students hopefully to do the program, because they felt one barrier was that many seniors aren't particularly interested in doing any projects that are intensive during the spring of their senior year, when they've already know what they're doing the following year and have done quite a lot already over their career there. But the first cohort of students, 5 of them presented last night. 5 more are presenting as we speak at the high school. And I was able to attend last night, and it was very impressive what those students were able to do, a variety of topics, everything from finding a way to bring therapy dogs into Shrewsbury High School and one of our elementary schools, Patton School, to a student who wrote her own novella and talked about how she developed that and some of the literary style she was using and approaches. A student who was interested in one thing and then actually changed gears and did a whole presentation on integrated farming that he became interested in after a visit from his grandmother from India. And then a student who did podcasts, a series of podcasts that are about life at Shrewsbury High School and what's available there, which will be quite interesting, will be very useful, and I think to students who are entering the school. And a student who did a whole project on diversity, sort of modeled after the book Humans of New York, and that was interviewed a range of students from all different types of backgrounds and cliques about what their passions were, and also about the culture of Shrewsbury High School and what they saw as beneficial and might be what they wish to improve. And I thought they were extremely well done, and really pleased. I'm looking forward to hearing what the 5 students present tonight. But I think it was another good example of how the high school continues to look for ways to find things for students to do that are in concert with some of our strategic priorities around really making learning valuable, tapping into things that kids are very interested in and passionate about, and helping them develop as independent learners at the same time. So kudos to Mrs. Trombley and to the folks at the high school for making that happen. And that is superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you. First on the agenda, we will have a report from the Shrewsbury High School Student Advisory Committee. So if you'd like to come forward. And I'd also like to recognize Mr. Andrew Smith, who is a high school teacher and a long-standing faculty advisor. Welcome. When you get settled, you can introduce yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia Pang, chairperson of the Student Advisory Committee, and I'm here with the rest of SAC, and we are excited to share our agenda with you tonight. Now we'll go down the line and introduce ourselves.
I'm Abia Hassan, and I'm a junior.
My name is Nikita Ram, and I am a sophomore.
I'm David Lee, and I'm a junior.
Not to get off track, but you may have noticed the absence of our 5th member, Max Evers. He is currently representing SHS at a track meet against Algonquin. The first item on our agenda tonight is Class Cup update.
With a little friendly competition as motivation, the 4 classes of SHS participated extraordinarily in numerous fall and winter events. Each worked to claim the coveted Class Cup. Spirit Week. SHS's Spirit Week occurred from November 4th through 8th and was a wonderful way for students to be able to showcase their school spirit and unity. The week kicked off with Class Color Day, with each class in their respective colors. Freshmen in orange, sophomores in green, juniors in purple, and seniors in red. Tuesday transitioned into a comfy pajama day, and students got groovy with Decades Day on Wednesday. The whole school came together on Thursday for Blackout Day, and on Friday, everyone was able to show their colonial pride by donning their SHS gear. The week ended with the Fall Spirit Rally, where classes competed in a series of fun events to earn points for the Class Cup. Many teachers even joined in on the fun. The current standings are seniors in first, juniors in second, sophomores in third, and freshmen in fourth.
Starting 2 years ago, Colonial Way has been a key part of Spirit Week celebrations. However, this year Colonial Way was canceled due to concerns over the Triple E risk in the evening. This was a pretty major disappointment for students and organizers alike, as students were looking forward to the festivities and club leaders had already invested in their tents for the celebration. However, students did understand the severity of the safety concern.
The fall concert at SHS was a grand success and ultimately represented our music department wonderfully. Many students from different ensembles, including chamber orchestra, wind ensemble, treble choir, mixed choir, and the a cappella group, performed multiple pieces of music that truly showcased their hard work during the first quarter. The fall play also was wonderfully directed by Mr. Lapamardo and was a major success. This year, the play was Fools and was a comic fable that captivated the audience and brought laughter throughout the crowd. This program was a Class Cup event and led to the seniors in first place, juniors in second, sophomores in third, and freshmen in fourth.
The class of 2022 has brought dodgeball back to SHS. Teams of 8 had to compete in an open tournament for bragging rights and a title of SHS Champions printed on a set of matching t-shirts. The champions ended up being a squad known as the Family Tree. Overall, the class raised $950, and students and teachers alike enjoyed the chance to show off their skills. The winners were Aryan Pafanabayina, Jad Banat, Sean McQuaid, Dennis McNamara, Tyler Narva, Jake Newmark, Dan Jaluli, and James Ramos.
Fundraisers. The students of SHS are provided with many opportunities to give back to the community. From September 30th to October 4th, students participated in the Coins for a Cure Drive, a competition for Class Cup points. Donating coins added to a class's total and paper bills subtracted from it. It was a fun way to raise money for breast cancer research, with students totaling $3,576.70. The Thanksgiving supply drive also counted for Class Cup points, with the students bringing in over 4,500 items for families in need. Juniors donated the most items, followed by seniors, sophomores, and freshmen. Lastly, there was the dental drive, in which numerous items, such as new toothbrushes, were donated. Seniors donated the most items there and claimed an extra Class Cup point.
The second item on our agenda tonight is Quarter 2 progress.
SHS students continue to exemplify hard work and dedication through extracurriculars and new initiatives, but are also grateful for opportunities that allow them to de-stress. Quarter 2 marks the end of fall sports and the start of the winter season. Highlights of the fall season include boys soccer and field hockey advancing to the district semifinal, cross country reaching the state championship, and both boys and girls crew winning the public schools state championship. In terms of the winter season, tryouts are over and regular season is marching in for SHS.
With the end of the fall semester, 10 students in the class of 2020 have completed capstone projects. Run by Mrs. Trombley, Capstone is an initiative students can apply for the summer before junior year, and if admitted, allows them to pursue a large independent project during the second semester of junior year and the first semester of senior year. Capstone students receive course credit for their work and spend time in and out of school working on their projects. To celebrate their work, they prepare a presentation to be given to family, friends, and SHS faculty. 5 students presented last night, and 5 more are currently presenting tonight. They will also be displaying their projects in the Media Center for an open exhibition on Friday during the school day. Some examples of the excellent work these students have completed include writing a novel, inviting a service dog to visit Shrewsbury schools, investigating diversity, creating a podcast, and researching reptiles. We can't wait to see what next year's capstone students bring.
On November 15th, students at SHS participated in the second of 4 planned advisory periods, which occurred for 45 minutes between periods 2 and 3. This time, the focus was stress, which topped the survey on issues among students at SHS. Students answered questions related to their stress level, watched a guided meditation video from SHS Mindfulness Director James Frank, and filled out a survey about what caused them stress. The general opinion among students was that this advisory period marked an improvement over the first, while a few continued to doubt the overall effectiveness of the period itself. But at the very least, the second advisory period fittingly served as time for de-stressing the student population.
No homework Thanksgiving. Over Thanksgiving break, SHS implemented their second installation of the no homework policy. Students received no assignments to be due the Monday after the break, with the exception of coursework from AP classes, in order to enjoy their time off and de-stress. As with the first no homework weekend over Veterans Day weekend, student response to this policy was very positive. However, because many classes simply reassigned homework due Monday to be due Tuesday, students still felt pressure to complete work over the break. This policy is still relatively new though, so students are thankful and are hoping to see adjustments in the future.
On Tuesday, November 19th, SHS was deemed a National Unified Champion School. This honor was bestowed during a ceremony in the Fieldhouse, where a game between SHS's current and former members of their unified basketball team was accompanied by musical and dance performances by students. The Fieldhouse was packed as a special banner was unrolled to commemorate this achievement. The title of National Unified Champion School truly speaks to SHS's dedication toward and achievement of a truly unified community.
The last item on our agenda tonight is town meeting. Through our annual town meeting, SHS students learn how they can make an impact by vocalizing and advocating for their opinions. Perhaps the topic of greatest discussion at this year's town meeting was senior privileges. SHS seniors asked about decorating their caps for graduation, bringing senior quotes back to the yearbook, and using the side entrances to enter the school during Period 1 studies. While these concerns were valid, they were not as pressing as others raised during the meeting and are unlikely to be further pursued by the students. One concern about including career and military counseling, in addition to college-related workshops, was more impactful. It was agreed that this proposition would be beneficial, and students would like to see it pursued.
A particularly interesting proposal was presented to administration at this year's town meeting, a plan for a textile drive. Did you know that in 2014, 16 million tons of textile waste was produced in the U.S. alone? I didn't know either, until this student included the statistics in their introduction to their plan. The exact details of the plan have been submitted to both the administration and student council, and students are excited to entertain the idea of making a positive impact on the environment.
Similar to previous years, ALEC's concerns from students were present, including many complaints that it increased stress. However, like previous years, SHS plans to continue implementing ALEC's in its math program. Additionally, Mr. Basillo presented data from the math department displaying the effectiveness of ALEC's. A new concern this year was the removal of the App Store from all iPads, which was facilitated during the previous school year. Students are concerned that beneficial apps little known to SHS are now impossible to obtain. Mr. Basillo said that Apple has disallowed the App Store from all versions of its school iPad programs, so adding it back is impossible with the current iPad infrastructure. However, students can make personal appeals to the IT department if there's an app they would like to see on self-service.
Feminine products. Another topic brought up at town meeting was the use of feminine products in SHS school bathrooms. Student Council President Lauren Talkman had a plan laid out, both temporary and futuristic. For now, products have been made available in an office on every floor of the school instead of just the nurse's office. In the future, the school plans to attempt to install bins with products into the bathrooms, with aid from the Making History Club regarding technicalities as well as funding.
Students seem particularly receptive to the idea of having American Sign Language in the SHS foreign language curriculum. It was said that even though there was a club created prior, some interested students had a hard time attending these meetings because of sports and other after-school activities. John McManus believed a great compromise to this idea was having ASL an elective at the school in upcoming years. SHS students are hoping to see a change like this in the future.
This concludes our presentation for the evening. We are now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Jason?
Thank you all, as always, for your report. I was just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on the request at town meeting for the career in military counseling. I was interested in that discussion.
So we didn't get all the information about it, and I'm sure guidance is a little more involved with that, but a student did ask about, I think he was interested in going into the military, but he noticed that while we did have a lot of workshops talking about the college application process and things like application boot camp that did help with that, he didn't notice as much support regarding options that he was considering, and I think he brought that up as something that he was hoping to be included. As of right now, I don't know where we stand in terms of how much we know about exactly what the plan will be.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I always appreciate this. Thank you so very much for the time and the great presentation. I'm curious about the issue raised at town meeting around feminine products, and I'm glad to see that there's some leadership for sort of really looking at that. You suggested that there was some funding. Was that funding to sort of like install the bins into the bathroom, or funding in sort of an ongoing way? Because every year there'll be a cost maybe with getting them, or funding so that people didn't have to pay. Do you have any idea what that looks
I
like?
think the funding is more focused on installing the bins themselves into the bathrooms, because we have always had the products available in the nurse's office.
Yep. Okay.
So, because I know before it was asked at a previous town meeting, and when it was found difficult to make that happen, a lot of the girls brought in things themselves, but they brought in their own boxes and put them in the bathrooms, and it was difficult because they'd run out and there was no refilling, so it'd be a lot better for us to have like a more sanitary and safe option.
Do we know if a lot of our young women are making use of the different offices on the floors and using those materials? Do they need to be replenished regularly?
I think,
Or is there still an issue that going into an office presents some stigma or issue?
I think right now, Lauren Talkman, who's our student council president, who was working with the nurses on this issue, I think she only really began to start putting these products in multiple offices following Thanksgiving break.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly how it ends up being used.
Great. Thank you.
It's a great presentation, really well prepared. Appreciate the time and effort that you and Mr. Smith put into all the work that goes into presenting to us every quarter. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned the fundraisers for Coins for a Cure. And I'm curious if that's similar to the fundraiser that they do for PTOs referred to as Penny Wars. Is that
Yes.
similar?
I think it is.
So what we do is we have, it's like those water bottles, right?
Yeah.
The really big, the really the jugs, yeah. And they would just be set up at lunch, 4 of them, 1 for each class, and you would put in coins to add points,
Right.
and put in dollar bills to subtract.
Yeah,
So
very
I'm
successful.
assuming-
Program in
Yeah.
the other schools. I know it's been extremely successful fundraising. And you might have mentioned this in the report, but do you know how much you raised for?
Yes, for Coins for a Cure, we raised $3,576.
That's great, excellent. No, I think that's great. I also think the town meeting is a great platform for all of the students to have a voice, and you're essentially the voice of the students to us. So it's really important the work that you're doing and presenting to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also want to comment on the career and military question that was brought up at town meeting, because I think we've had some discussion around, college is not the only path for students, and I think we have to be very mindful of that. So I'm really glad to know that students are also asking for more resources around that non-college path, and maybe bolstering what we can do for students who don't feel that going to college is something for them. So I'm glad students are bringing it up and bringing it to administration, because we have been talking about it as well.
Okay, that's great to hear.
That's good. Thank you. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you very much for the report. It's really always terrific for the community and school committee, of course, but the community watching at large to be able to get this information on what's happening at the high school and so many excellent things. Sophia, I apologize for stepping on your report earlier by talking about the capstone recognition. So we're really talking about it. And just so the committee knows, Sophia is actually the student who did the podcasts and did an outstanding job with those, and we're actually hoping to find ways to get those up on the website so you can check those out at some point in the future. But maybe if you don't mind, Sophia, I know last night the 5 students who had presented at the end did a bit of Q&A, and Mr. Pizzillo asked you some questions and some other folks, but maybe just talk a little bit about what you and your fellow students felt were some of the real benefits from that program.
I definitely think, at least what is, because it's a very personal journey, so we did get to meet up with everyone as like our own like group of 10 people, like several times throughout the year, and Ms. Trombley would check in with us like about like once a quarter, and we'd like meet during homeroom. But I think a lot of the journey was individual, and everyone's working on their own project. And I think from talking with my fellow capstone students, what we took out of it a lot was like getting the opportunity to do something individually and like persist through it. And I think everyone can agree that we had like roadblocks, and Sam completely changed his project 4 months in. But ultimately it was like making sure that we knew how to stick to it and finding the resources that we needed, and Ms. Trombley was really supportive about that. So, yeah.
And would you say that based on the experience you had, that whether it's higher education or beyond or in the workplace or whatever the option a student might go into from that they'd be better prepared to do something on their own where there's more responsibility or independence that's required?
Yeah, I think so, because I think a lot of capstone is taking initiative and having the courage to be able to like pursue what you need and get the resources you want. And I think in environments like college or like a workplace where you want to do something, maybe that's just like your own idea, but maybe you are hesitant to do it, having this experience beforehand and knowing that you've done something by yourself before, I think could be very beneficial.
Right. And the other thing I would say is that, and actually ironically, it was the theme of Sophia's podcast was making a difference. Right. And so the idea of high school students wanting to make a difference, and how do students make a difference. And to me, it's very exciting that we have students in the town meeting format who are not just talking about we want something to change or be better or whatnot, but things like the textile drive or sign language, the ability to learn sign language, or things that they feel are going to make a difference for themselves and for others. So in addition to the fundraising and the community service pieces that students are seeking ways to go ahead and make a difference, and whether it's locally for their school or their community or in a broader sense. So that's something that I think is part of the culture at Shrewsbury High School, and I think these are the kinds of things that reinforce that. But thank you again for your report. We appreciate it. Thanks for covering for Max. Hopefully they better win, beat Algonquin, but we look forward to the future reports. But again, thanks so much for your preparation and for sharing the information with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we will have Todd Pizzillo, principal at the high school, along with Marie Monopoly, assistant principal, present the proposed changes to the 2020-2021 program of studies.
Certainly a tough act to follow. Far more articulate than I am. Two follow-ups just to the SAC presentation. The good news story is we have 13 people signed up for Capstone, which will start in January. So that's a good news story. We'll continue to advertise that and hopefully get some more students in there. And we also have our next 2 homework-free weekends already planned, and we worked that through with the directors. It'll be March 11th through the 15th, and Memorial Day weekend, which is May 22nd. So that's hot off the press. That the students weren't aware of. So, all right, now on to program of studies. Thanks for having us tonight to talk about our proposed changes for our program of studies. And I think for the viewing audience and for the school committee, it's always good to get a good sense of what's going to happen with course selection. I do appreciate the hard work of the directors who have worked with their staffs around taking a look at what they think students are going to need and trying to anticipate future demands and what colleges and universities are looking at. And again, career and military people would looking at in terms of the skills necessary to be successful in those fields. So after the fall, we've put together what we think is going to be the best proposals and very tight and concise that we think we can offer with the staffing we currently have at the high school for next school year. For the viewing audience and for the school committee, just to give you an idea of how, I don't want to say complicated, but how tight this timeline is in order to get this done. We start with our counselor presentations. In 2 weeks, we'll come back and we'll vote on the program. You'll vote on the program of studies, and if approved, we'll get it printed electronically and out to students and families. And counselors will begin presentations in classrooms the week of February 10th. February 11th, Mrs. Monopoly will do an outstanding presentation around advanced placement offerings at the high school. The week of 2/24, February 24th, students will get teacher recommendations. On February 25th, we have 8th grade curriculum night, so parents and families from 8th grade can come up to the high school on that evening and listen to directors and offerings as they work with their students around course selection process. Then at the high school from March 2nd to March 20th, counselors will meet with individual students to talk about their course selections, talk about what track they're going to be on, what they're interested in, and look to make course selections then. On March 23rd, our directors will begin to take everything out of Power School and look at course tallies and begin to consider setting sections and allocating FTEs and all those things. And next week, we talk about who will be teaching those courses. And all this is going into Power School, or getting ready to go into Power School. There is time where sometimes students and teachers and families don't agree on necessary placement, so we have meetings to determine what's going to be the best fit. Some of those meetings entail the number of honors level courses or AP level courses in terms of how to manage the workload based upon student schedule. Students will actually go through a worksheet with a 24-hour cycle with their counselors and think of all the activities they have to do, and they kind of project how many hours of homework they'll have, what their job, if they have a part-time job, if they're in a club or activity, whether it's the theater or performing arts or visual arts or honor societies or athletics, and they kind of have certain time sets there. Studying, sleep, exercise, it all comes down to one thing, and typically students find out they need 28 to 30 hours a day to complete some of these things, and that's where our conversations go around some of those, some of the more difficult conversations with students and families is how do we find the balance with all the activities that they want to do. Then we really get into the crush of data entry into Power School to get that ready to go. The week of April 20th, we called the build, which Power School will start to build around all the constraints we put into it and hopefully come up with a schedule, and we work around that. Mr. Navarro will work probably, 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, it seems like, and he comes back and says, guess what, we have a master schedule. We'll then import and load all the students in the schedule, and then after that, we begin to resolve conflicts with students and families, and then hopefully by June 1st-ish, we'll have a completed schedule. But the conflicts actually happen after this. We try and figure them out before the close of school, but sometimes it doesn't work out, and we need to work over that over the summer and beginning of school. So that's really one slide of a lot of work. But that's how the process works from our perspective. Mrs. Monopoly is going to talk a little bit about the efficiency of scheduling. We have a table here to discuss that a little bit.
Sure. So we offer 292 distinct courses, and out of all of those courses within the schedule, we offer over 1,500 different sections within the students, within our entire course load. I think it's this is something that it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around. What Mr. Nevada is able to do with the schedule and how efficient he is building the schedule, how much time he puts into it, because he's able to build the schedule with relatively very few conflicts. And really, there's only a handful of students who do not get the course that they request first time around, which is amazing. So he has over a 95% efficiency rate with building the schedule with his most recent year. We put in over 16,000 course requests into Power School. And again, he's been working on this for years and tweaking it. And I've watched him and participated in these meetings with him in the collaboration he does with the directors. And he's able to ask very specific questions because he knows what questions he needs to ask in order to create this super efficient schedule. So we're lucky to have him, and the students are lucky I don't think they realize what he's able to do, but I don't know how many boxes he clicks in order to get this efficient schedule that he's able to create. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, certainly that, and for those that don't know, he's a Power School University trainer. He's been to national trainings, been invited to train other school districts on this, and I can't not speak about the IT department and his work with our data specialist, who, when there's snafus, he works closely around that to make sure the algorithm and the schedule works well. So that's kind of the back end piece around scheduling and efficiency. As you see, over the last 10 years, we've had continually improved. His first year, 11 and 12 was 74%. He's had a remarkable trending upward of percentage of efficiency. So kudos to him and the work they do at the high school with the school counseling department.
Okay, so moving on to the proposed changes for the program of studies. Family Consumer Science, we'd like to offer a new course called Baking and Pastry Arts. We're very excited about this. It's all about learning and cooking from scratch, baking from scratch. The students will focus on breads, pastries, cookies, all that fun stuff, learning how ingredients react, how precise they need to be with ingredients while baking. We're all excited to sample some of these final products that they create, and I think it's a great opportunity for the students to explore a different line in the culinary arts. We're going to also take out Foods of the World and put in Mediterranean cuisine. We do that every other year. And in foreign language, we're really pushing the AP Mandarin Chinese course for more students to participate in that, and we'll be going into the classes for the Chinese 4 classes and promoting that this year as well.
Sure. Some of the most significant changes in my mind happened in the mathematics department. In your memo, you've read some of the rationale behind this. The new, it's not a new course, but it's a new level, this honors advanced quantitative reasoning. What we found in our work, the mathematics department work with Joe Bowler, following Joe Bowler from Stanford University and kind of new thinking around mathematics, feeling that there's a really good opportunity for us to use data and data science within this. AQR has always been the application and manipulation of data. And as we look at how the College Board has actually changed not only the AccuPlacer, but also the SAT and the MCAS has changed to use data sets, that this is probably a good move for us and be able to attract more students who might not want to take calculus. So we're going to see how it goes. It's an honors level course, diving deep into, I don't want to say straight data science, but certainly how to manipulate and apply data and what that looks like. So the really significant change in my mind, these two next changes are significant in the sense of we pushed Algebra Geometry 2, and Advanced Math 1 honors as a co-study. This is our third iteration, I think, of this. And Mrs. Johnson and I had lots of conversations last year of how we thought this would be a good idea because we had a number of students coming out of Oak that we thought would be able to do this. And when we looked at this year, we took a look at performance and also stress levels around this, we're finding that the model that we used last year was probably better. So we're looking to eliminate this as a course, but offering a co-study model where students can participate in Algebra Geometry 2 and meet the standards there, and wouldn't be overly stressed with the content of another full Advanced Math 1 class. There are 2 courses in 1 year. And literally, probably 2 to 3% of students that enroll and from each class, from a graduating class, would be, I don't want to say eligible, but meet success. We're talking anywhere between 12 and 15 students. This year, there's 42 enrolled in those in the 2 sections of this co-study. So we're not seeing we over-anticipated what we thought was going to be beneficial, and we think the co-study model where they can supplement the work that they do in the classroom with Alex and critical thinking strategies after school as a separate second semester support will help students in the long run. Additionally, we'll look to eliminate Advanced Math 2 topics. This is a course for our most struggling learners for their 4th year of mathematics. This course we worked with Quinsigamond to develop articulation agreement in order to prepare students for mathematics and to ensure they wouldn't have remediation or try and prevent remediation courses and actually get 4 credit, have students enroll in 4 credit 100-level courses as soon as they enroll in Quinsigamond Community College. Quinsigamond has no longer uses the AccuPlacer, which is the test which we've based this whole course on. They've stuck with their curriculum at Quinsigamond, and the College Board, who owns AccuPlacer, has changed the AccuPlacer test. So colleges and universities may use, other colleges and universities may use AccuPlacer, but there's a variety of different ways that different colleges and universities actually test students when they get there. Some might have tests on the day of orientation day or accepted students day to find out where the math placement is. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to continue it when we're trying to support students who are going to Quinsigamond, and it doesn't align with what they're doing with their curriculum. And looking at last year, 2 of the 17 students enrolled in this one section that we offered last year attended Quinsigamond. So we're making an adjustment there and hopefully going to move more students to functions in trig, which is probably more aligned with college and career readiness standards in the state frameworks. So we're hopeful that that will be resolved and we can move forward with that and prepare students for a variety of different tests, particularly aligned with what we'll see through AccuPlacer or other college and university placement offerings.
Mr. Bazidlo,
Sure.
if I might, just before you move on to the next subject area, I'm just, can I have you go back just a tiny bit to the co-study option? I don't think I quite understand. What is that like if you're 42 young people enrolled currently, but you're only expecting maybe 12? I think I'm not understanding what co-study is.
Sure, we took 2 courses.
Yep.
In years past, we took a course and we supplemented that one course, Algebra Geometry 2.
Okay.
And we took Advanced Math 1 topics, and it allowed students to follow a progression through when they mastered a topic in Algebra Geometry 2. What we're finding is students who participate in outside mathematics programming.
Yep.
I call it AAU math. They'll go take math courses outside of Shrewsbury Public Schools. They'll come in and there might be accelerated. So what we did last year was we had those students, I don't want to say self-study, but move quickly through the curriculum and supplemented with Alex.
Okay.
We felt that we had a number of students based upon the success with that we could offer it as instead of a differentiated go as you know, that we could offer it to everyone and kind of have both those courses taught during the same year.
Okay.
So those 2 courses we proposed last year would be one course where they co-study. We're finding there's been some struggles with students in that class and just the size of the class and that.
Okay.
So I think we tried to say, okay, if we're going to raise the standards and raise expectations, and we hope everyone's going to meet those expectations. They certainly are doing okay, but I think there are certain students that they'd be better off meeting the standard of Algebra Geometry 2 and wouldn't necessarily be prepared for pre-calculus. Advanced Math 1 is our course right before pre-calculus.
Okay.
So we're worried, small w worried, or we're hopeful
Yeah.
that those students will make it to pre-calculus, but some of those students are going to have to take Advanced Math 1 next year.
I understand. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Sure thing.
That's helpful.
Okay, moving on to performing arts. We'd like to offer a new course called Foundations of Music. This is really, it's a course very similar and modeled after the Unified Athletic Programs, where we're going to have peer partners with students with disabilities, and they're going to learn music together. It's a great opportunity for our students to collaborate and to participate in the creative process together. This is really for students who are interested in pursuing careers in education or human services. It's a great opportunity for our students to work together, and we're really excited about this, and it really just highlights our inclusive school culture that we've built and we're proud of, and our students love, and they really enjoy being part of this. So this course will meet 2 days out of the 7-day cycle and will be part of the music requirements, so we'll fulfill that. We'd also like to change the name of the History of Music to the History of Rock and Roll. We think it's a more accurate focus for the course and will be more appealing to for the students and get a little bit more interest. We'd like to eliminate a number of courses, and that's just because we did not have the student interest, the demand that we thought it might. And even though we know there's a number of students who would enjoy the focus on dance and theater, I think just with the variety of options, we just didn't have the actual numbers to run the course, these courses. So we're pulling them out of the program of studies for this. And then moving on to proposed changes in the science and engineering department, we'd like to offer a new AP Physics C course. So this is especially for students who would like to focus on majoring in physics or in engineering in college. And we found that our current AP Physics course is an algebra-based physics course. And so when our students who want to enroll in an engineering college or major in physics, if they took the current course that we have now, those credits are not applied towards their major in college. But this new course, the AP Physics C course, because it's a calculus-based physics course, it will be applied to the college credits for those colleges like WPI. So it's an opportunity for those students who would like to pursue this in college. And again, it's just enhancing our science program here and providing those students that opportunity to lean into that course. We'd also like to offer a new course called Human Body Systems, and this is the next course with the Project Lead the Way series for the biomedical pathway. And in this, the students will explore all human body systems. So it's a great opportunity for our students. They're going to be using data acquisition software to really study and explore these body functions. And students will take on kind of the role of a biomedical professional and while learning about these different body systems. So it's very exciting. It's the second out of 3 courses in order to that are connected with the biomedical pathway. And then we'd also like to eliminate the digital electronics course. And again, that comes down to student interest. And every year we get a handful of students who request it, and we just don't have enough students to run that course. So we're going to pull it out of the program of studies.
And the last changes we are looking to eliminate American in the World Today, as they are under-enrolled and overlap with 2 courses, American Government and the Global Studies course. And also from our Visual Arts department, look to add Foundations of Art, which is built on the same model as Foundations of Music, and will run opposite, so we can continue to include the same type of model we use in that proposed course to meet the needs of the diverse learners at our building. So, we'll entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Questions, comments? John?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm always amazed at the scheduling efficiency. When you talk about 96% of the requests being fulfilled as the enrollment goes up. You know, in 2010, you were at 73%, right? So that's amazing. 23% increase over 10 years while enrollment continues to go up. I don't know how Greg does it, to be honest with you. It's excellent. It's just a great thing. A few questions with regards to actually the baking and pastry arts, how that class came about. I'm curious, only because I think I might have heard something in passing when I was in the high school about maybe the background of that particular instructor. I think would be great for the committee to hear about that.
So Jean Brunel retired. And when we hired a replacement there, we ended up, actually Patty Crossan retired and Colleen DeRico moved to the ECE. We hired a teacher who has a pastry background. And when meeting with Jeff Lane, who's the director of that department, we talked about costs, and we're finding that if we bake from scratch, it actually can reduce costs of the materials we're spending in that area. So I think we're maximizing someone's expertise, and also it was a win-win. It costs less to run that programming, so it's something a little bit different, and I think, like I said, just looking at someone's expertise, so, yeah.
That's awesome. And then very supportive of Foundations of Music. I love the idea presented there. I think it's great. You've done great work at the high school with unified and inclusive learning.
A side note, we had our first unified sound club today, where we are working with a group of students who will play in our ensembles, and they've worked after school in the violin, the viola, the saxophone, and we had students working with students on teaching them how to play those instruments. So it was really cool. A very good beginning for our building upon our unified programming. So, yeah, there's more to come on that. That's exciting stuff.
And one last question. I just remembered from last year, that History of Rock and Roll class. I remember it being proposed last year, but the name changed to what it is, and now we're change it back, just more suitable title, I guess.
More suitable title, and I think part of it is a little bit of marketing.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree.
The enrollments weren't there, and the performing arts. I remember, I think last year we did a very extensive revamp of performing arts, and the enrollments came back, and they were not good. So we're just trying to align everything we can to fill out those sections, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Comment and a question. Regarding the history of rock and roll, if the department needs an Elvis on velvet, I might be able to locate one for you.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's always there. Regarding the issue of certain students moving on to college and having to take remedial math, how can we feel more reassured that we're sending everyone out fully prepared and that no one needs to take remedial math? It sounds like an attempt to get at that is coming apart, and I don't quite. I'm not sure I'm hearing that we're identifying the right people, we're properly training them, and we're getting the feedback that it works.
Yeah. It's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer it. I would say this. I think we're identifying the right people. I think that we have to prepare students to see, for instance, in that last year's course, 50% of those students of the 17 attended a four-year college university. And some of those colleges and universities specialize in students with learning disabilities. So for some people, numeracy is an issue, and there's disabilities behind that. So I think part of what we're trying to do is continue to refine what we do. It's a very small number of students. I think we're doing our best to prepare for whatever entrance exam they have for whatever college or university they attend, because it runs a range of, some may use the AccuPlacer, but when they use the AccuPlacer, they could start in a different part of the AccuPlacer depending on what college or university attend. Some college and universities have their own homegrown assessment for placement. The short answer is, I'm not sure how we can meet every single person's needs of every single admissions test. I think what we have to do is continue to work towards identifying those people that need the most intensive skill building through a program with its functions and trig, look at the frameworks, and then try and prepare them the best we can as they are leaving, and through a variety of different methods. One of the things we do with these classes, you saw the class size, over the last 3 years, it's been 54 students that roll through that one course. So we keep those class sizes as low as possible, individualize attention, provide extra help. So there's a number of things we try and do. I'm not sure if we can ever guarantee that everyone will not have to attend some sort of remedial mathematics course.
I guess my observation is that this sort of gets at the frailties of testing, that we can do a test, somebody can pass it, and they may not be well enough prepared.
Sure.
And I just would emphasize that if, in so much as we can, getting feedback from graduates is going to be the acid test, because it seems that prior to this coming out a few years ago, we were mostly focused on our MCAS scores and our SATs and all these other things in which our population seems to be doing so well, and yet we had a little group of people who were slipping under the radar who were, getting through. And I I don't know how we can do it, but in so much as we can identify this as a problem and track, get some feedback from recent graduates, that certainly would be helpful.
Lindsay?
I want to say it seems as though Mr. Navarro is somebody who we should thank a lot. This seems like a very daunting task, and 16,000 requests is pretty incredible. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say, having a young thespian in my household, the idea that we're getting rid of stage combat, I'm sure he's going to be disappointed to hear, because that surely sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure you have good reasons for it. On the other sort of end of the spectrum, thinking just a little bit about our adding of two new AP courses in the Mandarin and in the physics. Do we already have staff identified who are able to teach that or
Yeah, we
trained?
do.
Okay.
We have one Mandarin teacher who's been trained. I think the other piece around the physics proposal came from the physics teachers and their own experience with feedback from students who attended
Yeah.
engineering schools.
Sure.
And they came to Dave Rascosi, who's our Director of Science and Engineering, and we met collectively as a group, which we don't necessarily do for every proposal, but given what I perceive as high stress levels, my question was, why do we need to add another AP course in physics? They're, as physicists, highly trained physicists, their rationale is compelling for students who are going to attend engineering school. And we'd want to certainly offer that for people, and we felt we wanted to support that. So, and we think we can do it. I think we have the physics teachers who are able to do it and able to teach that course. So I think we're in a good place with that. But ultimately, it came down to what students are seeing in the engineering that are attending engineering schools. They move through Physics 1. They have a really solid foundation, but when they move to college, it's basically calculus versus algebra-based physics
Yeah.
and credit bearing and those things. So yeah.
I'm glad to hear that it's our students yet again advocating for themselves to get
Yeah.
get their needs met. So, great, thank you.
Great.
I agree with Dale, when we talk about math courses, there's always students who don't either like math, don't do well in math, it's not something they're going to study in college, but they're probably going to have a gen ed class in college that they have to pass in math. So I think, making sure even for seniors, we have a class that's challenging, but not going to be so beyond really what they want to do in math or what they're capable of doing. So I always kind of worry about, making sure we have something for the students who it's not their thing. So I think, you're saying we're going to get rid of this, but we do have this other function, other course.
And from my perspective, I think that our curriculum, quite frankly, is aligned with what we want students to do, be able to think conceptually about mathematics, but also apply that. And no offense to Quinsigamond, but it's a very traditional curriculum that they're teaching, and it's different than what we currently have. So it was a little bit of a stretch for us to work with them in terms of trying to bring a really kind of rote memorization, let's manipulate this, let's figure it out, do lots of multiple problems versus let's really think about how to do this and what's the math, the science behind it. So yeah, I think it's for us, it's certainly for me, and I think about the mathematics piece and the students who we're trying to reach. I certainly think that Mrs. Johnson and the math department understand the challenges with that, and they're going to do their absolute best to make sure that we're going to provide students with that opportunity to meet success and be prepared for whatever they're going to find after SHS.
Right. And I love the whole biomedical piece. I mean, that is an industry that's growing.
Right.
Particularly in this part of the country, it's another, there's lots of jobs. So the fact that students are going to be exposed to this in high school as they think about maybe careers is great. I think this is a really good path that we're on, and I'm glad that we're adding this. And has there been significant interest in this
The
area?
first course has rave reviews from
Good.
students. Very hands-on, a lot of forensic stuff.
Yeah.
They have a murder scene or an unattended death that they have to investigate, which I'm not sure if Dr. Sawyer might have seen this with me at one point, but they go through a series of, it's very hands-on. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but kids are really excited about it. Students are excited about it, and I think this is going to be another, again, opportunity for them to have a really hands-on opportunity to learn more about it. So we're excited to be able to offer it.
Good. Excellent, thank you. Dr. Sawyer, any comments or questions?
I certainly want to thank Ms. Mazzillo and Ms. Monopoly and the team for putting together some thoughtful recommendations. I think that in a general way, and of course, the committee will get the full program of studies for approval for your next meeting, and we're very pleased with the range of different opportunities we're able to provide to students. At the same time, this is not pie in the sky in that we have, as a function of our space, we have a limited number of opportunities, and we more or less are running at full capacity, so this is tweaking around the edges to some degree. But at the same time, being very thoughtful about all the things you just heard, adding that particular AP Physics course and why. Very pleased around the idea of some of the inclusive courses that are modeled after the unified program, which has been such a success for us and benefits all the students who participate in that, and really is able to provide some of our students who would not be part of a traditional music or visual arts class to be able to take part in that. And do that with peers in a way that's really engaging and will help them, and as well as those peers who get the benefit of working with those students, and especially if they're interested in education or human services. So there are things I think that are appealing to biomedical science, things that kids are interested in exploring and wanting to do, and preparing them and helping them make some decisions about what they might want to do beyond Shrewsbury High School. So appreciate the thoughtfulness. I will also add my kudos to Mr. Nevada. I think we can take great pride in that when students are looking to select a range of things to do, that they're able to benefit from that and have those opportunities, and having his savvy to know that certain students are going to, who might be participating in certain types of performing art groups, are also, like many, are interested in another particular thing and not running those concurrently in the same period, which would create a bunch of conflicts for kids who would have to choose one over the other. I mean, it's never going to be a perfect schedule, but it's pretty darn close. And I remember those conversations 10 years ago, with some frustration with some parents or students around not being able to get the variety of courses that they wanted that are in the program. So it was kind of listed in the program of studies, but it was beyond their reach. And for almost all of our students, that's not the case anymore. And that's really, I think that's a really behind the scenes piece that people should need to understand is really a benefit of being a Shrewsbury High School student. So thank you for the work, and I concur with the recommendations, and what we'll do is bring the full program of studies to the committee in your next packet and ask you to approve it formally at your next meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the preschool tuition rates for 2020-2021 at our meeting on December 18th. Mr. Collins and Dr. Sawyer, along with Mrs. Robinson, who is the Parker Road principal, gave us an overview of the district's preschool program, as well as the rationale why it's required, and suggested session offering changes, as well as the associated tuition changes. I'll have Dr. Sawyer give us some more information.
Sure. There's a memo in your packet that references the presentation that Mr. Collins and Mrs. Robinson made. There is the recommended change to the program offerings to have more 4 and 5 day seats for half-day preschool. We do think that's going to be a better match for parent needs and preference. We are doing some lottery enrollment as we speak, and so as the memo suggests, if for some reason it doesn't attract the kind of interest we expect it to, we can always stay with the status quo and run some additional 2 and 3 half-day sessions, which has been the program for a number of years. What we're asking the school committee to vote on this evening is for the rates of tuition. The 3% increase is requested in order to keep up with ongoing costs relative to inflation for labor costs, health insurance, cost of materials, and then you have a chart on the second page that shows you the current rate and the recommended rate for next year with the 3% increase. But you can see that the dollar differences in terms of what families would pay. For the 4 and 5 day sessions, which we hope are our sessions next year, would be a net increase of about $100 for the 4 day and about $125 annually for the 5 day program. There's also a couple of fees there, late fee and registration fee, that are part of the program that help us administer the program, and that we would continue to use the Department of Early Education median income chart as the eligibility method for financial assistance. as well as continuing the 10% sibling discount. And so if the committee concurs with the recommendation, we'd ask that you vote to approve those adjustments to the tuition rates and program offerings.
And my understanding is we had no feedback on this issue.
I did not receive any.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions? Lindsay?
I think it's just important to note that, well, we obviously as a committee take any raising of fees really seriously, but one of the reasons to do this that makes sense from where I stand is to avoid any major fee hikes in any one given year. And consistent small increases make it easier for families to budget and understand and not be shocked by a new bill. So we'd obviously love to keep our costs down, but that's not the world we live in, and things rise like health insurance and other such things. So I'm certainly in favor at this point in time, even though I know we do our best to keep the things in check that we can.
Right. Anything else? No? There be no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the adjustments to preschool tuition rates and program offerings for fiscal year 2021 as illustrated in the superintendent's recommendation memo.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion or debate? There being none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next, Dr. Sawyer will provide his annual State of the District report.
Thank you for that. I don't want to be confused with the student advisory committee. I appreciate that as I get older. Nor will I probably be as polished and articulate. But,
Dynamic.
They're pretty remarkable.
Where are the puns?
So since 2013, I've taken the opportunity at the start of the calendar year to provide a report to the committee and the community relative to the state of the district. Since if the governor and the president and the mayor of Boston are doing it, why not? Public schools as well. But we found it to be a useful way to sort of enter into the budget season and look at how things are going, what some of the major issues are, as well as remind people of what our focus is relative to our strategic priorities. In terms of compared to last year's report, I think that the difference is that, the theme last year was that we have work to do because, we have this ambitious plan, and there's good things happening, but in order to execute to the plan, there's a lot of things that have to take place. And I think the theme this year is a little bit that, we certainly are continuing that work, but we've made some progress, but we certainly have more to do. But I think we're making good progress towards that vision and those strategic priorities. Certainly, I want to start off by saying that, in a general sense, I think the evidence is substantial that our schools do provide an excellent education to our students and great value to our community. That's something that we've prided ourselves on for many years, and something that continues, and I continue to be enormously proud of the work that happens in our schools every day and the results that we get. There's a whole variety of indicators of excellence. First and foremost, of course, high levels of academic achievement, certainly comparable to peer districts, and within the top state in the nation for public education, going on about a decade now. So I think that the community can be assured that the quality of what our students receive for education is as good as it gets pretty much anywhere around the country. And I think there's a lot of things that, evidence that backs that up. In addition to what happens in the classroom, which is dynamic itself, we also continue to see that teams and individuals engaged with all sorts of co-curricular activities and a wide range of them are earning regional and state honors, championships, everything from academic competitions, as you know, speech and debate team, state champion, second time in 4 years. New things like esports, which I heard a big report about on NPR this afternoon when I was driving my daughter to soccer practice, and the billions of dollars that are being, some of the students who won the state championship, maybe we would be asking them for alumni donations soon, I would think, maybe if they continue to do that well. But the very first 2 state championships in the history of the Commonwealth for esports were won by Shrewsbury High School teams. unbelievable performances. The musical, again, best production in the Mount Wachusett Theater Awards. Visual arts, so many students whose artwork is whether it's the Scholastic Art Awards or different displays at different museums and colleges around, continue to do well. And you just recently heard the athletics report about how well our teams continue to do. Something like on 90+% of our teams going on to postseason play. Another state champion this past year in the fall rowing team. So lots of different things that certainly the district can be proud of, and that signal that the idea of really pursuing excellence goes across our academic program as well as our co-curricular program. What I would say, though, is that the thing that I am most proud of as far as an accomplishment, and really goes with the idea that we're trying to promote excellence for all students, was what our SAC mentioned earlier in the meeting, was the high school being named a National Unified Champion School. I think that really goes to the essence of what we're trying to accomplish and how all students need to be included in what we're trying to do to promote students to be able to have experiences and successes, regardless of whether or not what they bring in terms of their own level of ability. And that's something that I think we will be a real feather in our cap for a long time. And as you heard from the program of studies, we're trying to expand that in different ways now in the arts as well. So that's something that I wanted to point out as something I think we should be particularly proud of. We continue to have superb educators and strong supporters. This, frankly, is the same slide I provided last year with a different title, because it really hasn't changed. I mean, our educators, our support staff, our leadership team, they do extraordinary work all the time. You as a committee provide leadership that creates those conditions to be able to happen. Our parent community is unbelievably supportive, whether that's their own children, supporting them in their academics and their activities, but also just generally supporting the school communities, whether that's through volunteering, whether that's through financial support and fundraising. We are very fortunate to live in a community with this level of support. And then beyond that, the community at large, our town government are very supportive of what we do as an educational enterprise. And I know that sometimes when you see news stories from other communities, whether locally or nationally, where there's contention and infighting between different parts of municipal governments or people resenting the money spent on schools or whatever it might be, that is not the culture in the town of Shrewsbury, and that's something for which I'm deeply appreciative. And being, not only the superintendent, but a longtime resident and parent, with my wife raising our daughters here, and knowing kind of some of the experiences sometimes you hear other places, I think we're remarkably fortunate for what we have here in this community of Shrewsbury. I do want to emphasize that it's important for us to stay focused on our vision, and we have continued to look back at the Portrait of a Graduate that was created a few years ago to help guide what we're trying to do. I think that it wasn't explicitly stated in the program of studies presentation that you just heard, but a lot of what those changes are and things that will be offered and then what's being continued to be done is moving towards this idea of what do we want for our kids by the time they graduate, and what kinds of skill sets and characteristics do we want them to have. So staying focused on what that vision that was articulated is really important. In addition, of course, we are now in the midst of a 5-year plan. We're about halfway through, where we're headed towards 2022 with these 4 strategic priorities. And I'll go through the rest of the report this evening, talking about each of these 4 priority areas and some of the work we're doing in terms of making that, advancing that work for the benefit of our students and our community. That first area, these are in any particular order of importance, is the area of learning environments where everyone's success matters. And I think we're definitely making strides towards this ideal of all meaning all, where we're trying to make sure all of our students get what they need to be successful. The unified sports recognition from Special Olympics is one example of that for sure, but we also have other examples. There's a photograph of one of our co-teaching classrooms at Floral Street School, the Mrs. Papalardo and Mrs. Blair, and become sort of fashionable in terms of New Year's resolutions to pick your one word for the year, and they had their second graders do that, or first graders this year do that, where they are holding up the one word they've chosen for this year, for their one word challenge for 2020. And these are students who are incredibly engaged, and they have teachers who are doing remarkable work. And they're just one of many teams across the whole elementary and middle school and high school now who are bringing that kind of co-teaching inclusive model with a lot of professional development and focus on trying to provide as many opportunities as we can within classrooms for students of a range of abilities and academic needs. So there's a lot of work happening. I'm very pleased with the progress, but we still have, of course, more work to do to keep moving in that direction. The next area is the enhanced well-being of all. That is something that, again, we've taken some steps towards addressing things like stress and other social, emotional, and behavioral health issues, but we do have much more to do. At a meeting in the hopefully not too distant future, we'll share data. Our students did take the this year's version of the regional health survey, where we're waiting. I think we have some preliminary results. We're waiting some analysis and to be able to present that information to the committee. And we'll see. Of course, it's impossible to isolate one variable to say, well, that's what made a difference. But I mean, we know that there's a lot of initiatives happening. We're hoping to see the needle move on some of these indicators towards better behavioral and mental and social emotional health. I think that the photograph here is just of a T-shirt that the SWAT team, the Student Wellness Advisory Team, last year had a week around social and emotional health at the high school, and these were T-shirts they passed out to a variety of people. But it was a whole bunch of activities that happened as a result of that. In addition, you heard the pieces. You heard recently a presentation about the mindfulness partnership that was developed. There's a host of things happening in the elementary schools relative to a focus on kindness and building those kinds of positive school cultures. You heard the report just prior to the holiday break that Ms. Clouder and Ms. Belcito and Dr. Lozat presented relative to the work that we've been doing around social emotional learning, which we definitely advanced, and I think we're at a point now where we're going to start getting some traction around some of the improvements that we think are necessary, that we can and start to build in a more coherent and cohesive way across the district. So lots of good work happening, but yet at the same time, and as well as things like you talked about the no homework weekends, and we're in the middle of work around evolving our homework policy overall as a district. So finding specific ways not only to sort of cope with inevitable stress that comes just with life, but also trying to find points where we may be unintentionally creating that stress, and how can we ameliorate that in appropriate ways. So again, we're making good progress there as well. As far as connected learning for a complex world, this is where I'm really excited about some of the things that have been happening in terms of an increase in opportunities for students to do more project-based type learning. Some of this is happening naturally as different curricula evolve. The science work, and you had a presentation a year or so ago about that. That's been really emphasized at the elementary and the middle school level relative to a change in the state frameworks that's become much more active and hands-on and inquiry-based. We're seeing, you had a report this past fall on civics education, which is again a state-level change that's being made relative to curriculum and expectations and a new law that really is in concert with the work that we're doing around trying to promote more project-based learning that will require students at the upper middle school and the high school level to do actual projects that demonstrate a knowledge and an approach and an understanding of civics and how our government works and our communities work. So I think it's nice to have that dovetailing with the work that we want to do anyways. There were a whole host of things that the front page of the Shrewsbury School Journal back in the spring issue of the last year highlighted a whole variety of things that high school different classes are doing, the American Studies program, an English class in particular, that students were doing these passion projects. You heard about the capstone projects, which are year-long kinds of studies, but these are studies as part of a regular English or history course where students picked an area that they were very interested in, made connections to what they were learning in terms of being able to communicate effectively about it, or what the context was in government or in history historically, and then actually move them forward. And as a result, kids have really been engaged with those and motivated, and they've really been, that's the kind of work and learning that we're looking to see that's authentic and connected. This is a photograph or a series of photographs from Mr. Jerry Mamolarella's design lab at Oak Middle School. This was supported through the Colonial Fund. And, he has groups of students who come through for 30-day cycles. And the first thing they do is they go look for a problem to solve. They're going out and using the design thinking to interview teachers or other school staff. What's something that we could do? Is there something we could design that would make your work easier? And, anything from iPad stands to the various things. They have laser cutters. They're using 3D printers. It is real world kind of stuff that they're doing in 7th and 8th grade, and the kids are absolutely enthusiastic about doing it. They're flying drones. There's all kinds of things, and that to me, that level of engagement is what we're going for. That's a great little lab for us to be able to see how that can work, and how do we spread that to other kinds of classes across the curriculum. And the last area, space and resources to support effective learning. I think it's absolutely critical that the district have the space and resources necessary to achieve what the community expects of us. The expectations are high, and rightfully so. But like any other organization or endeavor, you can only do what you can do with the resources you have. You can be as absolutely efficient as possible, and we strive to do that all the time. We're a very high-value district. When the written report is published, there's all kinds of links to the ClearGov document that's been being used more in terms of demonstrating graphically some of the things that we've done as a school district, or how we spend and how we compare to other communities. And again, it's one of the best values anywhere. But ultimately, in order to do the work, you have to have the resources to make it happen. I think that there's a couple different ways in which we're trying to leverage this. There is this photograph. You may recognize the people in it. Receiving a very generous check from Shrewsbury Federal Credit Union for $440,000. That's helping to advance this Colonial Connections project, which is getting off the ground, where we're trying to connect more with the business community and find internships or other kinds of outside opportunities for students. And it's early work, but so far it's been good work, and there's been a lot of enthusiastic folks. We have a steering committee now, and work that's happening as a result of trying to move in that direction. So that's critically important. This, of course, is we're spending a lot of time and energy on building a new school. It's going very well. It's on time. It's under budget. We'll get more specific budget information probably the end of this month relative to the guaranteed maximum price. And there's lots of work happening, of course. The redistricting committee will be meeting in an upcoming soon, and next week, I believe, for its first meeting as we begin that work. So there's a lot of things that are happening relative to making sure, because we are going to have the space for elementary school, space that we can offer all students full-day kindergarten, space that we can relieve the pressure on the other existing elementary schools, as well as, of course, get out of a building that has been in use since 1922. And this is a great news story. But we need the resources, and we will need the resources when we talk about budget coming up to make sure that we're able to appropriately staff that new school. And provide the resources. Some of that staff will come from existing places, like the existing Beal, but we're at a point where this pent-up demand has to be satisfied in order to provide the right level of programming and support for our students. I don't have a photograph of Shrewsbury High School. Someone could probably do a cartoon of students, bulging out of the windows and whatnot, because it is packed to the gills. You've heard about that, and 99% room utilization, and it was built for a design capacity of about 1,475 students. And we've got about 1,900 there now. So we're way over design capacity. I think the core facility capacity was designed for about 1,700 students, I believe. So we're even 200 students over that. And they're doing great work to make it work, but we need to continue to monitor that, and we'll be looking to work with one of the parts of the building project. You may recall is that we will be working with our architect to do a space needs assessment for the whole district in terms of going forward into the future, and that's something that will be coming up in the year ahead. That will be very important. But these are things that are exciting and at the same time challenging for the district. I would want to just summarize, in addition to all these outstanding achievements, in addition to the fact that I believe that we are keeping our eye on the ball and we're focused on a strategy that we've developed that we think was strong, and we're executing to it. There's all organizations, but I think particularly school districts can be subject to seeing shiny objects that are coming flying at you. Everyone has the best new thing or the best new program, and it's tempting to stray off from what you were focused on and try something else that's new. And we know that the most successful organizations stay on target and do that over time so that they can build momentum and ultimately, hopefully, get the results that they're looking for. There's no question that at the same time, resource-wise, we still have a structural situation in terms of how schools are funded in Massachusetts, where there is going to be a lot more state investment in public education, but that investment is really not going to be coming to Shrewsbury. There'll be some effect over the next few years, but in the short term, really will be very little different than what the status quo has been the last several years. There are obviously other kinds of pressures and limitations to local funding, and when we present the budget at our next meeting, we'll talk more specifically about that. But we're trying to run an institution that is not sensitive to the fact of how successful we are or how efficient we are. It really has to do with other kinds of things that determine how many resources we have at our disposal. And making good choices and trying to be the best stewards we can of the resources we do have remains to be critical. The other challenges, we've talked about this a great deal, and although I think we're making strides towards it, matter of fact, one of the capstone presentations last night, one about diversity, but asking students about the culture of Shrewsbury High School. There was actually a theme that many of the interviews in that project, where students actually explicitly noted the appreciation for more of a focus on mental and emotional health at the high school, and that was noticeable to students, and I think that's a really good sign. We also brought more resources to bear this year. We added counselors, adjustment counselors at the elementary level for the first time, added a transitions program that's grant funded to Sherwood that is modeled in an appropriate way for middle school students like the successful one we've had at Shrewsbury High School. We added another adjustment counselor to Shrewsbury High School. The previous year, we added more adjustment counselor support to Oak. The anecdotal evidence so far is that's been much needed and appreciated, and it's the typical, we'll do some reporting as the year goes on to you, but kind of like how do we do this without these resources in the past? That they're so valuable in terms of helping to work with students, and so that's been a good resource to bring to bear to address some of these issues. But anecdotally, we continue to struggle with a small percentage, but yet significant enough of students who are presenting with very significant mental and behavioral health issues that take a lot of time and resources, and that we have to address, and we have to keep figuring that out. So there's sort of the broad stroke, how are our kids dealing with some of these issues and some of these issues that we're dealing with as a society, and then the student-by-student issues that have, each one, it can be a very complex set of circumstances. Where the school, in order to try to meet these students' needs to provide a lot of different kinds of supports to the student as well as the family, as well as working with different partners. So I think that these are things that we have to continue to figure out and try to get better at incrementally over time, because it really benefits our students and our community when we do that. So to sum up, again, I think that we have some really amazing things that are happening in our schools. Our community should be extremely proud of the school district that we have. I certainly am as your superintendent, and I'll look forward to sharing this written document with the community. But I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear your comments. I could go on and on and on all night about a lot of more specifics, but that's kind of an overall snapshot of where I think we're at and what some of the issues we have to address as we go forward into the next calendar year.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Lindsay?
I certainly appreciate this. I wanted to share a little anecdote I don't think I've shared with you thus far. When I came on the school committee, you encouraged me to sit down with the members of your leadership team and I had an opportunity to do one-on-ones with each of them and learn about sort of their roles and what they were doing. And what I found so amazing and so important for our district is every single one of them, separately and independently, brought up the portrait of the graduate and brought up our strategic plan, which for an organization actually tells me how well it's run and how clear the goals and the mission are, because you can't get where you're going unless you can sort of see it. And our goals are huge, right? And what we're trying to take on are complex and exciting, and I'm impressed with the many areas and buckets we're really making, really trying to move the needle, as you said. I think for those who haven't had the opportunity to be in one of our schools in a number of years, right? This is not the classroom of the 1950s, right? These are not boring and stale rooms. They're dynamic, and lots of exciting things are happening. And so you can see it and feel it when you walk through our building. So I'm really proud of all of that, and that's really to your credit and the entire teams. But I think the reality for us is that we have to acknowledge that all this comes at a price, and I want to just be sort of ever reminding that as we continue to set big lofty goals, that we have to figure out how do we continue to support it. And I break it down really into two different buckets. One is certainly the capital, right? And I'm excited about Beal. I think it's just a wonderful thing to give us capacity, but our concerns of how do we continue to meet the public demands for more and robust things at the high school level when the kids can't move through the halls, right? And so that's going to be, that has to be on our horizon, and make sure that we don't limit any opportunities to do some of this great work. And then we think about the operating budget, right? And our sort of year over year, the excitement that comes with Beal comes with a cost, as you've already mentioned, and we got to figure out as a community, how are we going to tackle that? How are we going to do what's best for our youngest learners and make sure we can pay the bills? And so the things that are outside of our control are also that really difficult piece to manage in an operating budget, where fluctuations, like you said, with a couple of children can really make a big difference on our budget, and is hard for sometimes those who aren't in the nitty-gritty of this work to understand how things could swing relatively dramatically one year over year, and why that just falls to us as a town alone. So when I think about sort of fundamentally in government, right, there's like a question of the schools are public service. Well, who pays? Who pays for the service, right? And it's not the federal government. As we know, the state dollars are pretty flat for all the reasons that you mentioned. Not that there aren't efforts to really think about how the state is doing its work. And a lot of it does come back to locally, and it's right back here at home. I appreciate the incredible efforts that your team is putting into trying to find other resources. And I want to just acknowledge that takes a lot of time. And it's paying some dividends, but it also takes a lot of time on your staff to try to figure out where's the next grant, how do we make the connections. I think it's a good investment, but we have to keep continually looking at how do we invest our time and our efforts there. So I hope that we can continue to sort of challenge our community to think about how do we support our schools, our children, our future for the community in a way that meets the expectations that we will continue to set with you, and they will continue to be high. And how do we keep it there? So I think it's a conversation for us over the next couple of years to really be thoughtful about, because the portrait is exciting, and we're making great sort of strokes in the portrait of the graduate, but I don't want it to stall out.
Right.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Jason?
I just want to thank you, Dr. Sawyer, for the presentation and for your work. I do appreciate this report that we receive every year. I think it's valuable not only to us as school committee members, but also to the entire community to get a sense of where the district stands. Obviously, there are a lot of specifics that this committee will deal with that the community at large may be interested in some of those, but I think it's important for residents to have a more succinct overall picture of where things stand. Obviously, the state of our district is quite strong. Our students are performing well. Our staff are performing above expectations. There's a lot of success to look at, and I'm going to echo some of what Ms. Heffernan said. I am very pleased to see the progress that's being made on our 5-year strategic priorities, because when we set those were a very ambitious set of goals. And the level of progress that we've made in spite of resource constraints. And obviously, money is the resource we're always talking about. Getting financial resources for the district is a big part of our job as school committee members. But it's been alluded to this evening, but another resource that our management of that resource is very impressive to me is time. Time is unusual as a resource in that when you set a goal that's going to be achieved by a particular date, you only lose time. You never get more of it. You can theoretically find more money, and you can find money in other places. Once you set the clock on achieving something in 5 years, it's only ticking down. And the amount of expectations that people in general have on a public school district, especially residents of our community who have very high expectations of our schools, to a point you made during your remarks, you could spend all the time in the world chasing this, that, or the other thing. If you didn't have this level of focus that you do as part of your leadership, we wouldn't have achieved what we've achieved. There are so many demands on your time. There are so many demands on the time of our staff. And just as money is a resource that's constricted, the time that our staff have to put into all of the many things that have to happen to make a successful school district is staggering to me. We're obviously managing our time very, very well. And that's part of the progress that we're making. So kudos. I look forward to continuing to see the progress we made. Obviously, there's many challenges ahead. There's a lot of work to be done, but I'm impressed and pleased so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Really appreciative of everyone staying focused on the portrait of graduate vision, in addition to the 5-year strategic priorities, and the progress that's been made early on is really amazing. And it's also important to note too that these pieces, the vision, the strategic priorities, weren't created in a box. There were a lot of time was spent soliciting feedback across the entire community. Teachers, faculty, staff, students, parents, community members, right? So this is what our town expects. This is what they wanted in terms of the focus, not only over the next 5 years, but what graduates of Shrewsbury High School should emerge, and the skills that they should emerge with. I think we're a very forward-thinking district when you look at a lot of the things we've accomplished, from inclusive learning to awareness around the social emotional learning. Even something like esports is something that is great to see, that we stay ahead of the curve on these things. And we're always, every year we talk about this, we're always doing more with less, constantly. And it's really the resources that are going to continue to drive this vision. Very important, to deliver on the priorities. We need the resources to do it, but the progress is really well done. So thank you.
Dale.
Thank you for the report. I think it was well done. I enjoyed reading the full report and feel that it concisely outlines the strengths of the department. I think I'm taking away 3 things that I just want to highlight. One is that going forward, we're going to have some space problems, and we're paying attention to that. We're taking constructive efforts to anticipate that and get it under control. Going forward, and for as long as I know, we have funding problems that we do our best to manage, and we are delivering high value for what we get, and we understand that further problems are going to evolve just because of the way the system is designed. And I think the third is that a common concern of parents is that their child might get lost in the crowd. That being in the middle is sometimes a dangerous place to be because so much attention gets applied to each side. And one thing that I've observed and one thing I've heard from your report is that we are defining our success not just by the averages, but also by our ability to make each child as successful as they possibly can be. And I think that's an important message in your report that I just wanted to highlight for parents to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also want to comment on the report. I really enjoyed it. The links that you embed within, it's kind of a living document. So the fact that, you're going to put it on the school website, I really encourage people to take a look at this. This is a great overall of the vision and that information that we'll be looking at as we move into the budget in a few weeks. And I think the other thing that is really helpful, and it's due to your leadership and your staff, is we proactively assess challenges. We look ahead. We're not saying, this is an issue and I have to deal with it. We look ahead to see what those challenges are, to make sure that we have things in place and can be as proactive in trying to solve. And I think that's why we're successful, because it's a lot of this is a moving target. Things change over time, we have to adapt, and the district stays successful through all of this, and that's due to your leadership and your staff. So thank you. I think this is a good start as we move into the budget. It gives us that vision and that information that we need and the public needs to know where we're going. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have our minutes from our school committee meeting held on December 18th, 2019, as well as the minutes from our school committee workshop held on December 19th. Did I say it was December 18th for the meeting, December 19th for the workshop? Are there any changes or corrections? There being none, the minutes from December 18th, 2019 and the workshop from December 19th, 2019 can be marked as accepted. If there's nothing further to come before the committee this evening, I'll accept a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote is required. Dr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Winsky?
Aye.
Mr. Palish?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan? Myself? Aye. Thank you and good night.
Good night.